98,000 people were playing a 9-year-old game last week. And here's the wild thing. As of the time of that number, Hello Games hadn't even released the new expedition for No Man's Sky yet. It's kind of crazy, and you do wonder, how can a studio keep releasing whole new mechanics and systems for free? How are they able to do this in a world where it seems that others can't? Well, here's the not-so-secret secret. They're not. You are just not seeing the cost yet. Now look, if you don't want to code or engineer and you're not into games, you can skip this bit, but if not, you've got to get in boot.dev. They're today's sponsor, and honestly, where the f were they a decade ago when I was in university? You see, Boot is all about learning back-end development using TypeScript, Go, and Python, and, well, unlike anywhere else, it's literally made for us in that it's a role-playing game. I mean, just look at this leaderboard, race past as people are completing lessons. But today, I want to show you something cool and new. It's the training grounds. It's a new feature that Lane shipped like 2 weeks ago, and it's awesome. It is infinite and specific training, and what it solves is the problem of practice. And if you were like me, much of your learning was solving problems in a university course and then moving on to the next thing, and too often not having that knowledge stick. And this is where Training Grounds is real cool. It knows every lesson you've done and when you've done every lesson. It knows what you found challenging and what topics you've learned in the past. So it can actually work in revision, basically using spaced repetition. And using all of that, it actually creates coding challenges for you. It's an awesome new feature, and that's just a tiny slice. Boot is truly fantastic, and you got 25% off your first purchase at boot.dev/Bellular, and if you're not happy, don't worry, because they'll refund you on the spot with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Internet historian may have coined the Engoodening of No Man's Sky, but at a certain point, it stopped being a redemption story because now, No Man's Sky is just good, and it's a part of the gaming landscape. It's an incredible success story, and in the best case, it is a bar against which all other space games will be judged, and of course all other redemption stories. What Hello Games were able to do has basically just became a verb, in the same way that someone would just say Google it, when what they actually mean is search for it on the internet, right? But truthfully, I did not expect to talk about this game much. Essentially, it was the little space game that could, it was Engoodened, and now nearly a decade after launch, about every 6 months, you do just get a whole major update worth of mechanics. Keeps everybody happy. But, you know, stably so. Not exactly newsworthy. But obviously, here I am talking about it, here you are listening to it, so yes, something newsworthy has actually happened. And that's basically because even compared to recent years and recent updates, it's this latest one that's captured people's imaginations. This team is not resting on their laurels. What they've created is absolutely goddamn immense, and now it's just recorded its highest concurrent player count since launch, which is 98,000 people exploring at once over in Steam. But obviously, as things will roll into the weekend, this is recorded late on Friday, I do expect that number to actually go up quite a bit. So, what gives? Why is this happening? How does a decade-old game have such a resurgence? Why are the numbers up so high now, even compared to other absolutely gigantic updates? Well, it's fairly simple. Hello Games delivered on a fantasy that basically every space nerd has dreamt of for years. Maybe even decades. Broadly in fiction, there are 3 types of spaceships. You've got your single-pilot starfighters, you know, an X-Wing, or, of course, if you're cultured, a Viper. Second, you've got your capital ships of the line, you know, Star Destroyers, battle barges, Galacticas. And both of those are, of course, in No Man's Sky. But now they've added the final piece. Because here's what you couldn't do until last week. Pilot the Millennium Falcon with your friends. I mean, Hello Games even put that in the trailer, or, you know, at least as close as their new Corvette creation tools would allow to that. And that is the core of what has been added. You can make your own multiplayer ships, and you can essentially treat them as traveling bases. So it's fully realized multiplayer gameplay where you can work together with your friends. You've got supporting systems like your spacewalking and your skydiving, and it's a combination that is just perfectly in alignment with where games have been going in the modern day. Think, of course, about co-op, think about the UGC trends, all of that's going perfectly, and it is set up to absolutely snowball things in terms of player reach. That's because it leverages something that we call a network effect. Because basically, your one nerdy friend with way too much time, so maybe me, if I was less busy, just spends a lot of time building a ship, and then, well, invites their friends to check it out. Those friends can, of course, build their own ships or just play around in their other friend's ship. And the thing that's cool there is it just sets the growth trajectory of a game like this kind of on overdrive. Now, the other side to things is the Expedition. The Expedition provides essentially contained guided onboarding to this feature, and as more people share ship images online, people start to realize what they can make, so they flock back or they pick up the game for the first time. The numbers are absolutely huge, and it's all because Hello Games added a ship construction system that almost could have been a whole other game, which is wild. And because of that, there's no wonder that people actually are kind of demanding that Sean Murray takes their money somehow. They kind of want to pay for all of this rather than just get it for free. But here's the secret about this update, and really all of No Man's Sky. Nothing is ever really free. And don't worry, this isn't me setting up a conspiracy. And even Sean Murray's got in on the fun. He retweeted memes of putting No Man's Sky as one of the 4 horsemen of free updates right alongside Stardew Valley, Hollow Knight, and Terraria. And it's true. We're 9 years in, and No Man's Sky has not asked for another penny from day one buyers, meaning that in terms of, game support, that's probably one of the best deals we've ever had in this industry. Now, obviously, it was utterly foobar at the start, but, 9 years of continued development is absolutely mad. It's basically just been a lifetime supply of space game for people. And because of this, some people frame it rather competitively, essentially calling paid update models to be greedy or unwanted. And if you're wondering where that comes from, well, think of MMOs, but also think of Paradox games, where you guys have got to buy a lot of DLC. And people start to think, how can these games be charging the way that they do when somehow No Man's Sky is able to just rebuild itself for free? Well, it's because it's not really free. Mark Watson responded to that sentiment with quite the insight. These free updates pay staff mortgages by generating money indirectly, and what that's meant is merch sales, Game Pass interest, and of course actual game sales. And he would know that because he's the product manager at Mojang. That's of course the Minecraft people. Minecraft is another game that does free updates. So whenever No Man's Sky is sitting at Steam's top 10 a week after Voyagers, well, that's your answer. That's how they justify free updates. Because despite being 60% off, 6-0, No Man's Sky generates more revenue than Apex Legends or Rainbow Six Siege on Steam right now. That's actually only part of the justification here. The other reason is called Light No Fire. I must say, this is where the genius of what Hello Games are doing comes into effect. This update was no small thing, and in the design deep dive, Sean Murray explained, quote, "This has been one of the biggest undertakings for our little team. Every area of the game has to be reworked in some way. Having your multiplayer crew walking around just calmly editing your ship as it travels at warp speed toward a planet, it's actually pretty insane what's going on behind the scenes to make it all work." And that does make sense. These Corvettes touch every single aspect of the game, right? And its mechanics, base building, resource usage, combat, traversal. They actually change everything about playing No Man's Sky, which is a serious resource commitment across all disciplines. And sure, Hello Games knows that they will get a sales bump with each update. But that's not the only reason, because the technology they're building is forming the backbone of their next game. And Sean Murray explained it quite clearly. Again, I'll go to a quote. "And then on our other game, Light No Fire, you have these real oceans to navigate. You need boats and crews, and this tech is being developed for both games." So what we're essentially seeing is them backporting technology to No Man's Sky when it makes sense. And that is damn smart. It means the thing that they can sell right now benefits from the development of their new thing. It also means that it kind of advertises their new thing, because if you're going around having fun in your Corvette and then you find out you can go around whole oceans with your friends in the next game, well, shit, you're absolutely going to be excited for that. And we've seen Hello Games do this sort of thing before. You may remember the Worlds update that refreshed Planetary Generation. It's incredible. It allowed for new weather, new terrain, and some new tech as well, like wind and waves. Well, in Light No Fire, you are on a single Earth-sized planet. So to actually sell that fantasy, they needed those details. So if they're already building the tech, developing these games in parallel just makes sense. But there's also the long-term emotional payoff, and that's the one that Watson pointed out. Because consider the difference that 9 years makes here. What do updates like this really do? I would say what they do is they sell you on Light No Fire at launch. So by now it's fairly clear why this team is able to release these things for free and still have them absolutely generate a hell of a lot of money. Of course, one thing to contend with is the amount of money that comes into your studio. Another thing to contend with is how much of it goes out of your studio. And this is a fairly small team. Now, we still might wonder, how are they able to do this, but say Paradox has studios that are not able to do this? Well, Paradox is a far, far larger group, also publicly traded one, so there are absolutely different incentives at play. Another thing could be just simply to do with total addressable market. There's competition in the spaces of a lot of those Paradox games, whereas I'd say No Man's Sky is offering you something that quite simply does not exist elsewhere. I mean, you could think of, say, Star Citizen, but there are fairly obvious reasons why a lot of people don't want to hop on Star Citizen right now, even though that team has developed some mind-bogglingly cool technology. It's just, as an overall game experience that you can trust, to most people, this just makes a hell of a lot more sense. So essentially, unit economics, money in, money out, fixed costs, and of course different incentives as you would compare to, say, Paradox. And big picture, 9 years ago, imagine telling people two things. First, that they would be happy with No Man's Sky. Second, that they'd probably be happy to put money down day one on a follow-up to that game. If you teleported back 9 years and said that, people would have laughed in your face. But now they've actually just shown up and delivered the goods and kept on doing it to the point where it's just mimetic, the energy that's behind this. So when they announce Light No Fire's release date, player trust will be healthy again. People will put money down. Probably more than ever will buy skins or expansion packs. And it's updates like Voyager that pay for themselves, yes, through the sales bumps, but also through trust, because trust does actually convert to money if you're, sensible and you're respectful to your players as a developer. People just trust that they'll actually do right by them. In this industry, it's clear that credibility is absolutely everything, and what I would punt to you guys is, how much do you think just a broad loss in credibility has actually damaged the business fundamentals here? Because whenever we've been going through some of the larger industry trends, you actually see that there's a lot of gaming just plateauing, and a lot of newer audiences just staying within Roblox or Fortnite and not actually transitioning over to the rest of the games industry. Credibility seems to play a bit of a role here. I just wonder what the world would be like if more developers were in a position to act like Hello Games have been able to act. But of course, that itself is quite the luxury. Even though the launch of this game was an extremely rough one and it was absolutely foobar, they were still a small team, and they did still get a lot of sales, even if you take away the refunds. And that is ultimately what allowed them to embark on this journey. The lesson then is that Hello Games are comfortable trading your enjoyment now for your trust later and your money. And that's no bad thing, because it has aligned the incentives of the player and the developer. And if that could happen more often, I think we'd have a better industry. But it's not the only huge success that's happened. Helldivers 2 has absolutely had its numbers spike, but it is Helldivers 2, so yeah, there's also been a spike of negative reviews. It's quite interesting, and you can learn about it in this video next.